Welcome, everyone, to the Fundraising Academy monthly webinar. This month, we will be discussing ethics in fundraising, real-world challenges, and practical solutions. Fundraise, you've got a cause, and learn how to fund it. Today, we have a phenomenal presenter that will share more in-depth information for you, as well as your distinguished colleagues at your organization on how you can increase your philanthropic support at your organization. And I am LaShonda Williams, your moderator today. I am one of the Fundraising Academy trainers, as well as the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement and Annual Giving at South Texas College of Law, and I look forward to moderating this session today. Let me begin by sharing with you great insight about your phenomenal presenter today, Ms. Adriana O'Donnell. She is currently the Director of Philanthropy at San Isidro Health, and she's recognized as a leading expert in philanthropy within the San Diego County. She oversees comprehensive fundraising program that provides critical support that is essential for services and advancement of the organization's strategic goal. She possesses over 2 decades of experience in resource development, marketing, nonprofit management, and more. She strives to build authentic relationships through communication as well as kindness, and all of that will be conveyed in the session today. She's dedicated she has a dedication to healthcare accessibility, which is why she's selected to work in that industry. And she's completely an advocate for women's rights, which mirror both her values as well as her upbringing. Obviously, she is one of our phenomenal trainers with the Fundraising Academy, and she teaches courses like this one throughout the year to inspire fundraisers to reach their optimal potential. Her prior roles include serving as a director of development with the American Lung Association in San Diego, executive director of Muscular Dystrophy Association of Hawaii. And in addition to all of these things, she's actively engaged within her community. Her educational background includes a degree, an MBA, specifically in nonprofit from Chaminade University of Honolulu, and a bachelor's degree in international business from Johnson & Wales. Ms. O'Donnell manages not only to lead in the industry, but also has a true commitment to excellence as she earned her CFRE in 2020, being one of the distinguished Latinas in this worldwide certification, which heightens her level of expertise and demonstrates her sincere commitment to excellence in the philanthropic space. She's held countless roles within the community, and she's currently the president-elect of the Association of Fundraising Professionals of San Diego. She's the chair of the Public Image Committee for San Diego Rotary Club 33. And in addition to all of these things, not only does she seek additional professional development throughout the year, but she also manages to be a mentor for the Chicano Federation of San Diego Leadership Training Institute Fellows Program. Her experience is very diverse and reflective of the philanthropic space. Her areas in which she's resided range from Columbia to Rhode Island to Ohio and now San Diego. She currently fuels her passion for making positive impact through philanthropy and service. And with that, today I introduce to you your presenter for the day on ethics, Ms. Adriana O'Donnell.
Wow, thank you so much, LaShonda. I really love being here today and sharing space with you and with everyone at the Fundraising Academy and everyone who took the time today to learn a bit more about our profession and applying ethics in a way that's real world, because things change all the time, as we all know. So I appreciate being here. And LaShonda, I think I need you as my hype person. That was, wow. Thank you.
You've done the work, and you're definitely the expert when it comes to the industry. So we're looking forward to hearing all you have to share.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think that this is a great way to get into it. So, in this webinar, as you can see about our objectives, we're going to learn and apply ethics, rationale, and accountability in fundraising. We're going to dive deeper into ethics accountability, specifically as it applies to the cost selling cycle. We're going to explore the 7 principles of ethics and accountability. And then, we're going to look at real world situations because, as we all know, things aren't always black and white. So, really talking it out with each other, making it a little more interactive. So, as you may know, the cause selling cycle has 8 steps and 3 different phases, as you can see in the diagram. And what I want to talk to you a little bit more about is, how ethics kind of goes into every single one of these phases and approaches. So, how does ethics, play into prospecting, the very first step in approaching or figuring out who a potential donor is for your organization, for your mission? And an example is making sure the information that you are researching for this potential supporter is held in confidence. And who has access to that information? And what exactly is being collected for this donor? Making sure that you realize that any information that you compile on a potential donor or a donor, if they ask, they should have access to. So ensuring that whatever it is that they read is respectful and highlights them in a positive manner. Same thing goes with the pre-approach. Who is again privy to the information? What information do you not collect about this specific donor? And ensuring again that it's done in a respectful manner. And that it also has as accurate of information as possible. The approach, again, what information are we collecting? Are we going on social media to check out what our potential donor or donors are doing? If so, are you collecting that they also contribute to, say, the Cancer Society, or that they're really into animal causes? These are pertinent to what you should know about your donor. Not necessarily anything else that is more personal that they choose to share on their social media, because it is theirs to share. As far as the needs discovery, questioning donors with ethical standards in mind, what questions not to ask. And I think this is part of also emotional intelligence, reading the room, specific to your donor. And in this part, I do want to say that I try to put myself in a donor's shoes. And actually, I am a donor to different causes that I value their missions and deeply believe in the cause. And so I think to myself, well, how would I want to be regarded by these different organizations? And then I apply that to what information I'm gathering in order to make the case for my own organization, which is San Isidro Health. So I think that applies to every single phase, from prospecting to approaching to the presentation that you're sharing with the potential donor, even in the way that you ask the donor for support. Again, what is important to them? It's all of the research that you've done and ensuring that it is appropriate for what it is that you're asking them for. And then it goes on to stewardship, which is ongoing. So the communication doesn't stop after you receive that gift. It continues as just what an authentic relationship should be for you and the donor for your organization. And onward, the cycle continues. So just wanted to give you an idea that ethics actually is part of every single step. Every single step. It shouldn't be. It should be an and to what you do as a fundraiser for your organization, especially if you're using the cost selling model. So with that said, I want to hear from you. I want to know, what do you think stakeholders wants to know about your organization after and before making a gift? I know that Faith is going to make that poll available to you, and I'll just take a minute to see what you've got. I don't see it. Oh, here it is. Sorry, it was in my screen behind me. I have too many screens. Okay, so 15% stated that it is the gift designation. 8% said it's confidentiality. 8% also said impact reporting, and 69% all of the above. No percent for recognition, which is interesting. Thank you all for contributing to the poll. And so you're right, it is gift designation, it is confidentiality, the impact of their donation to your organization, recognition, it is all of the above. And really, it is up to us as fundraisers to listen to your donors' needs and, ensure that you are honoring what their intention is for their gift. Sorry, there we go. So, what do donors want? And here I feel like I do my best teaching and storytelling. So I'll do exactly that because I can tell you that uh, fundraising, because you're dealing with human beings, people, uh, you know, not every donor is the same as you know. And they have different aspirations, different reasons for giving to your organization. And they also may have like a deeply personal reason to select your organization over the many others that deserve their support too. As you know, I did live in Hawaii for a while and, was fundraising for a couple organizations in the beautiful island of Oahu. And in that instance, Hawaii is it is very diverse and it has rich culture. And part of that culture is actually also included in healthcare. So at the organization that I worked with, it was, yes, Western medicine, but also with a deep understanding and respect for Native Hawaiian healing. So it was, hand in hand. And one of our supporters wanted to ensure that their support went specifically towards Native Hawaiian healing, not necessarily Western medicine, because they knew that Western medicine was covered under insurance and Native Hawaiian healing was not. And that was important to them. But what was also important to them was that they were not listed in any of our acknowledgments, that there was no name on the wall, that only certain staff members were privy to who had made the gift and also what amount it was. And so in that way, we were very protective of who had access to our donor database and also who on staff knew about the gift, which was our CEO, pertinent members of our development team, which was small. I mean, I say development team like we had 50, but there was only two of us. So it was a small circle anyway. And of course, in the moment, our Native Hawaiian healers. Um, so, um, that was what we decided to honor for that donor, but also we wanted to ensure that they understood the impact of the gift, because that actually made it possible for more people that wanted access to Native Hawaiian healing to have that option. So as it worked out, instead of using the donor's name, we just made it more prominent that it was accessible, that if this is something that you were interested in, that you can have access to it because of a generous donation. And that's kind of how we got around it. But again, some donors want to be very prominent, and some want to be thanked in the usual manners, the e-newsletters, a plaque on the wall, depending on what it is and what the amount is and what your gift acceptance policy is. But in that instance, we made sure that we listened to our donor and that we ensured that that donation was restricted to what it is that they wanted it to go for, and then talked with them about how they wanted to be recognized. And it was a very small recognition, which was really more about accessibility than having their name in the lights. So that is one of my little stories that is near and dear because of who it affected. And so again, it's about making sure that you're honoring your mission, that the gift is done to support your purpose and who you're affecting in your community, regardless of whether it is, healthcare, the arts, and all of the other different missions that we all, contribute to and hold dear. And donors want to trust that their money, that their donation will be spent as intended. And I want to also say that if it cannot be used as they intended, that be a part of the conversation from the very beginning. That will make the relationship transparent, and it will ensure that trust is just at the very beginning of the relationship, or that very beginning of that donation. Again, how do they want to be acknowledged? Do they want you to share the amounts or just their name? Do you have permission? If so, how do you have that permission? Is it in writing? It should be. And you should always request permission before publishing any donor list or gift amounts. Also, you have to make sure that the information that you do have for that donor is accurate. Is their name spelled right? Is the amount correct? Do they want you to list them as an annual donor with the total amount of gifts versus that one gift that may have been larger than the others? These are things that you should discuss. And actually, I think it deepens the relationship with that donor. Nonprofits, organizations, just like all organizations, I believe, must be transparent. Are your budgets, audits, financial information available to your donors? Are they easily accessible? Do you have them at your fingertips when they ask you for that information? In my case, when you're working in the healthcare industry, we do have to be mindful of HIPAA and privacy laws. So there's some things that we are unable to share. And of course, we must adhere to them. And then we also have to respect our donors' restrictions. If, again, as in my example, if a donor only wants their gift to go to a specific program, a specific project, if it is agreed upon, because it is part of your mission and what your programs support, then that is something that you must honor. And also show receipts, right? Ensure that you can share what the impact is. And the other really important part is acknowledgement. And acknowledgement takes many different forms, but the most basic one is a letter, an email, a text, making sure that it is done right away and that it is done in the way that feels like the organization is valuing that donor's time and support. So that is my little spiel on what donors want. And I cannot stress how important it is to be transparent for the use of what that donation will go towards. So how does your organization add up? And here I really want to encourage you to use the chat and let me know. You know, is your organization up to date in your 990 forms and tax documents? Do you have those at your fingertips? Is it up to date with your 501c3 status? Do you have a account or a profile on GuideStar or Charity Navigator? And if so, what is your good standing within that GuideStar or Charity Navigator's ratings? LaShonda, has anybody shared that is indeed what they do?
I don't have any feedback in the chat, but what I will share with you is that I work in the nonprofit space as well in the educational sector. And as you just mentioned, it's really important that we make sure that we're adhering to the highest standards, because donors want to have a heightened sense of confidence that your organizational financial management is in compliance with the nonprofit practices and guidelines, and keeping in mind that nonprofit is simply a tax model, not a business model, but they want to be comfortable with the financial management of their funds. And just to reiterate what you've already shared, identifying those designations is important, and that's why it's important to have an impact report to be able to demonstrate what your organization has done. And so it's critical in the higher education space now more than ever, in addition to all of the other nonprofits, because working at a private institution is a little bit different from working with a state institution. And so now I'm with a private institution. And with a private institution, although the guidelines are different in terms of how the organizational structure is managed, however, we're still held to the same compliance standards as it relates to taxation and guidelines. And so it's just important that when anyone's making a choice to give to your institution, your organization, your nonprofit, that they can have the confidence in knowing that you've adhered to state, local, national guidelines, but more importantly, it gives them confidence that you will adhere to their wishes as it relates to how you'd like your gift to be designated.
Yes, absolutely, LaShonda. Thank you for sharing that. And I also want to encourage our fellow colleagues on the call and on the webinar that as far as GuideStar and Charity Navigator, I encourage you to be proactive. And once you do have your new 990 forms, all your audited tax documents, to ensure that all of the information on your profile is up to date. Your organization may have grown, whether in employees or you've added new board members or you have new leadership or new locations. All of this should be current in your different profiles throughout the watchdog organizations that are out there. And it really is meant to be a tool for donors to have confidence and trust in the charities that they choose to support.
We do have a question from Lorena. Thank you so much for chiming in the conversation. And she asked, should our website have this information on it as well?
Yes, I really do believe that. I feel that it could be done in a few ways. Lashonda, you just shared about impact reports, and you could have your financial information on, a beautiful impact report, and it could be short. What it has is your mission, what was accomplished in that year, and also your financial information, which donors want to know, how much money was utilized for the actual programs and the mission versus administrative costs. So you could do it in an impact report. You can actually put a link to the 990 form to have them just go directly into the actual tax form. Or you could do both. I mean, honestly, I feel like it is a best practice to have it accessible.
Thank you so much for Lorena. That's the only question that we've had so far. So, way to go us. If we're checking off all the lists, that's a great thing. And that means we're inviting potential donors to come into our space. The more current it is, the greater propensity it is someone to have further inquiry and trust immediately.
Absolutely. And also, again, with the updating of your information, it keeps your messaging consistent. So what you see on your website, you'll see on your GuideStar profile, your Charity Navigator profile, as well as what's listed on your 990 forms. So I figured I'd show you what my organization, how it is listed in GuideStar. Again, it's San Isidro Health, and we are in San Diego County. For us, our mission is to provide accessible, affordable, and comprehensive healthcare to all, regardless of ability to pay. A practice for our philanthropy office is to work very closely with our finance department to ensure that we have the most updated information on all of our profiles. And again, to ensure consistency. That is what you will see on our GuideStar site. So again, another question for our colleagues. Does your organization have a gift acceptance policy? And does your organization have standards established for ethics? I'll take a minute to gather your answers.
That's a really great lead-in question, Adriana, because the world that we live in, these are two critical elements. We often will encounter individuals who will, out of nowhere, want to bestow to you this fabulous collection that means so much to them. And you want to be able to accommodate their requests, but then it's like, is there a policy in place? And all of the questions that come along with it. So these are two key questions that'll help prepare us as we're all thinking about how we're going to get some unique gift offers as we're approaching this end of year season.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm sure that we all have stories of unique, maybe eccentric gift towards organizations. And that's where the gift acceptance policy can be a real resource and tool for the philanthropy professional as well as the leadership of the organization. Well, perfect. So we have the results of the poll, and 57% said yes to the gift acceptance policy, 7% said no, and 36% said, I don't know. Okay. And does your organization have standards established for ethics? 14% said yes, 25% is a no, 50% is a I don't know, and 14% is said it's in development. And I think that's wonderful to have 14% that is actively working on it. I do want to share that when I did join San Isidro Health, one of the first things that I did for the organization, obviously making sure that I was working with leadership, my team, as well as making sure that it is approved by our board of directors, is a gift acceptance policy. And I just feel like it is a policy that helps with confidence in accepting gifts and to know what your organization is capable of accepting. And as far as the standards established for ethics, I can tell you that we utilize the standards of ethics as shared by AFP Global, the Association of Fundraising Professionals. But I really feel that if you have one specific to your organization, I think that's a beautiful thing, and I commend you for doing that. We have not gone there yet. How about you, LaShonda? What is it like at
Yeah.
your organization?
So I've been fortunate to be in two different educational settings where we had these in place, which was very helpful. However, I alluded to earlier that there are instances where you'll be afforded these incredible opportunities to accept these very unique gifts. And that's where you have to take a look at your gift acceptance policy. And there are instances in which you may have to go to your board and say, I know that this may not be a part of our traditional policy. However, this can create a tremendous impact and opportunity for our organization. Is this something that we can consider? The policies are in place to provide guidelines, and think of it as a framework, and also thinking about the capacity that your organization has. And when I talk about capacity, the people, spaces, and revenue, if it's going to cost the organization additional funds to secure funds. And I've had people to offer cars, which are great, but the part of that people don't realize is that you'll have to have someone to facilitate the sale of the vehicle, and then you won't necessarily get the full value. So you have to weigh what the ROI is, when the return on investment, when you're thinking about some of the tangible things as it relates to gift acceptance policy. And then the other side of that is making sure you have that ethics part in place. And in higher ed, across the board, we engage with tons of vendors, lots of vendor services, whether it be for janitorial services or if it's for direct mail. There are a variety of different contracts that come through higher ed space. And so with that, you want to make sure, or we make sure, that there's not any proprietary instances in which there's potential conflicts of interest, not being able to, we have policies in place to not accept gifts from prospective vendors or vendors, nothing above $50. That is the cap, to make sure that it does not influence you one way or the other. But I really try to stay away from it holistically. And, vendors will give you gifts at the holiday season. And please do not send me a gift direct. You can send a gift to the office, because I do not want it to appear to be any form of impropriety. And any time that you think that there's a potential conflict of interest, or if you think that one of your colleagues would frown upon it, or even a donor, if they knew that it was happening, that's a key indicator that you may want to decline. So, I encounter these kinds of things, but yes.
Absolutely. And to that point too, just really understanding what the capacity of your organization is, and that, includes gifts of property, which are a bit more complex. Does your organization only accept monetary gifts and in-kind donations that directly relate to your mission? An example of that is if you are in healthcare, then masks and different things that are new and can be used within a clinic setting are always welcome. It's the outliers that need a little more thought, because if it does cost the organization, then it's counterproductive, right? So thank you for sharing that example. And I feel like vendors are a bit tricky depending on the organization, because sometimes your vendors are a donor pool for the organization. And it really is up to you, your leadership, your board of directors to determine what is appropriate. Great. Thank you for that feedback. Okay, and then here is a little bit more about communications. Transparency is a large, it is ethically, it's ethics, it really is. And so taking extra time to really develop a communication plan is important. And it includes, compliance, the accountability for the support, making sure that you're transparent and that there is accurate reporting. And honestly, I feel that depending on what the particular gift is for, say, for example, if you had a donation specific to a building or to purchase new equipment for a new facility, um, you should consider what the transparency and accurate reporting looks like for that type of communication with your donor. Is it showing them photos of what it is that their donation purchased? I think photos speak a million words compared to what you can write about it, right? Can you share, the impact of having this new equipment at your facility? It has provided, 50 community members with whatever it is. And is it are you ensuring that the amount intended for that particular project has been fully expended? And if it hasn't been, can you share that with your donor as well? You should. And this, again, building trust with your donor, ensuring that you are in a true partnership with them. And if things don't go as planned, sharing that as well. And an example of that is, we are going through a really unprecedented time because of, what we just experienced with COVID-19. And some things have gotten more expensive. And what you projected to be the cost of a project, program, building, equipment in 2021 when you receive the gift is different from what it is, for a 2-year support in 2022 or 2023. So being able to communicate that and to do it in a way where they understand why and what you're going to do about it and how you're planning on utilizing their support is very important. So open line of communication. And another part about compliance, I know I didn't really dig into that, is to ensure that you're adhering to guidelines, um, government guidelines, submission deadlines, and that you are, doing all you can to maintain your nonprofit status, so not jeopardizing it in any way. Um, and of course, accountability and transparency is what you should be thinking of. I'm sorry, did I skip? No. Okay. So we've talked quite a bit, and I think that the best way to really look at what is happening today is using scenarios. Again, not everything is black and white, and it really depends on your organization. Sometimes it could even depend on what state you're in. So please take a look at one of our first, scenarios, and we want to hear what your thoughts are. Please utilize the chat and don't be shy. So our first scenario is, what would you do? So a hospital foundation chair and capital campaign co-chair, they're the same person, said he will give a $500,000 gift to the campaign if the hospital parent company would consider moving their investment portfolio to his investment firm. Do you think there's a conflict of interest there?
That is very interesting. Very okay. Ashley Bell, thank you so much. She's the first to respond. And Ashley said, spot on. Yes, there's definitely a conflict there. Stephanie, thank you so much. She says, yes. Oh, yes. Pam says, yes. Lawrence says, yes, this is a conflict. I'm so glad that we are responding. This
Good.
is great. I never would have thought about it. Many conflicts, Jennifer says, many conflicts. So with
Absolutely.
that, it's interesting to know like what would they do in this scenario? If you're in this position, what would you do? That's it's a lot.
Right. Well, obviously this person is very close to the organization. They're donating their time and they're donating their support. And so there is a tie there. Um, when you talk about um, what may appear as a do for me, I'll do for you, quid pro quo situation, you really do have to look at optically what that looks like, first of all, or one of the things. And then also, what's in your gift acceptance policy? If it is clearly defined in your gift acceptance policy that a donation is, you know, receiving a donation from anyone, there is no benefit. This is going directly to our mission, and that we are not giving this donor business or anything. I'm putting it very simplistically, but I mean there is copy for it. But in its simplest form, the gift acceptance policy should say that when you give to XYZ organization, you're giving to support the mission. And XYZ organization will not provide any, preferential treatment or
Yeah.
whatever. This is the importance of the gift acceptance policy because it is in writing, it is established. Most of your board has approved it, and it has been accepted from the top of the organization, your leadership, all the way down to your entire development department.
This is like the perfect example of quid pro quo.
Uh-huh.
And we've seen so many instances, and I have to revert back to my area of practice, which is higher ed. And we saw a lot of that in the news a couple of years ago with celebrities
Oh yeah.
and contributions to various organizations and institutions of higher learning seeking admissions. And so in that same vein, we just have to really walk the straight and narrow line. And there is no gray line when it comes to conflict of interest, and be very clear about those boundaries. And that's why it's so important for each of our organizations to have a code of ethics in place as well for each and every one of us, because at some point in your career in the development world, you will encounter something similar that will make you question whether or not this is something that should happen. And if you ever have to second guess yourself, then you definitely know that there's definitely a challenge in place. We had a comment from Lorena who says, is this info available for our elected officials, with a smile? Thank you, Lorena, for that.
I don't know. But thank you
Thank
for
you so
sharing
much.
that. Well, the other, point I want to make, because we are looking at real world situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't necessarily want to, sever the relationship. This is someone that has been with your organization, is donating their time. And this may not be the only gift. This may be a transformational gift for a capital campaign. And so, you really need to dive back into the relationship and see how you can navigate it to be what it should be for your organization. And again, this is where the gift acceptance policy is very valuable, because it's something that it is in place and important for your organization, and is meant to help you navigate these types of situations, and lean into your leadership as well when you do have these difficult conversations. And again, you're working with people, so he may think that this is acceptable, he or she, and being able to talk it through, be 100% transparent on what you're able to do and what you're not able to do, is for me what I would do in this situation. But I have no, say on who our financial investment firm is, right?
And being candid, I think, will
Oh,
garner even more
absolutely.
respect And it strengthens the relationship from the standpoint that you're being very transparent with what is ethically correct and incorrect, which could actually heighten, their respect for your organization. You're going to get a variety of different types of gifts. We often talk about the test gift and how it's important to treat all gifts as though they're major gifts to see what the response may be. But in this particular instance, there may be instances where donors may test your ethical behavior, and you can strengthen the relationship by maintaining a high standard, or you can potentially jeopardize the relationship by putting yourself and your organization in a compromising situation if you don't respond properly.
Absolutely. Thank you, LaShonda. So we have another instance. A longtime donor pledges to make a transformational gift, but she asks for it to be restricted to fund a project that is not supported by the organization's mission. What would you do?
I'm really interested to see what everyone's going to say. Um, So we have a post in the chat, a couple of things. Thank you, Stephanie, for the kudos on the idea of learning in situations like this, that it's helpful to you. But we also have a comment from Ashley. Ashley says our organization has to run into this scenario a few times with a potential donor reaching out to donate, but for something in return. Unusually, special treatment for the donor of their company. We've always had to be candid and let them know that the donation is only a donation if they're not receiving goods or services. And that's correct. If there's going to be an exchange, that's a different type of gift. There's co-branding, there's sponsorship, there's underwriting opportunities. But Ashley, kudos to you and your organization for making sure that you adhere to those standards. And we also have a note from Pam. And Pam mentions that your mission comes first. If it doesn't support the organization's mission, it should not be accepted. And, I think that's a drop the microphone moment.
Right, right. And it's also empowering. You are the expert on your organization, and you should be able to say, I really appreciate your support and your commitment to my organization. But our mission is, and are you open to a conversation to fund this particular project or program? Because at this time, we are not doing whatever it is that, again, transparency, communication, open communication, and again, leaning into your gift acceptance policy, because I'm sure that that is also a part of the types of gifts that you are able to accept on behalf of your organization.
Definitely. And then also, Adriana, as you're thinking about it, when you think about the donor cycle holistically in your approach and your discovery, all of these things as you're developing linkage, ability, and interest, perhaps best case scenario is that gift that they would like in a restricted area that doesn't align with the mission, but you can identify something from your prior meetings and conversations that they've demonstrated interest in that do in fact align with your mission. So that's, another option for everyone to consider as well.
Absolutely. Are there anything else in the chat?
There aren't any additional posts at this particular time. So
Okay.
let's see what's up next.
Okay. Ooh. A donor says that he will consider a $500,000 gift to the capital campaign if your institution will hire his daughter, who is fully qualified for the position, for a leadership role. What would you do?
Wow, that's a good one. Let's see what our attendees have to say today. Please be sure to share in the chat what you think or what you would actually do so we can see how we're looking at applying ethical principles, practices, guidelines, and procedures to these various ethical scenarios in which at some point one or all of us may encounter in our career. Don't be afraid to share. Sharing is caring.
And I'm seeing $500,000 a lot. I think we're trying to channel.
Yes. right? I think we are
So,
all channeling that as one of our forthcoming major gifts.
yes, year end is coming up.
All right, we have a response from Lorena. Thank you so much for posting in the chat. And she says, I think I'd personally defer to my role being unqualified to make that decision. Pam says, not ethical. The daughter might be among those interviewed, but no promises. And then Jennifer has also chimed in by saying, there have to be two separate processes. Otherwise, this falls into quid pro quo, but also easier said than done. Ashley says, well, if the position is open, then she's welcome to apply and go through the application process as everyone else, but absolutely no promises.
Mm-hmm.
We're definitely onto something here, ladies and gentlemen. And continue to share your thoughts and chime in if some of you still have some ideas that you'd like to share with us as far as what you would do in this particular scenario.
It is interesting because sometimes I feel like when you have a major gifts or a major gifts donor or a donor that's really tied to the organization, there may be some instances where there isn't a separation between donor and staff, or sometimes it could be, um, just because of longevity in supporting the organization. So again, I having the standards of ethics and also your gift acceptance policy will help you here, but also the separation. You're right, Lashonda, and also our colleague on the chat, that it isn't something that philanthropy professionals are in charge of. That is definitely HR. And um, I think that the way I would handle it is to say, well, thank you so much for considering your $500,000 gift to the capital campaign. Again, talk about the impact because that's something that you do know, and say, thank you for sharing about your daughter. She seems lovely, and thank you for talking about her qualifications. I actually don't have any say on our hiring practices, but I encourage her to submit her resume. And we do have our process, and it is listed on our website. So please feel free to have her apply. And that is kind of how it is done, because that's another thing. You really don't have anyone can apply. That's also a policy of ours, where we do not discriminate against anyone for applying. And when we look at hiring, it's based on qualifications and experience. And that's what I would share with the donor as well.
Ditto. We have another post from Cassie who shares, I've run across this in faith-based organization, and we suggest a daughter start volunteering on a subcommittee best suited for her leadership expertise, and then eventually apply for a position when available. And, I think that too, Cassie, thank you, well said, is a great example of how to transition the conversation and then also create an opportunity for whomever that prospective candidate may be to foster their relationship with the organization and demonstrate their authentic alignment and support of the organization. And Stephanie adds that, and the next year ask the donor if he'd still be willing to consider a $500,000 gift. And that's important, being able to separate, as you said, HR is a different process.
Yeah.
And is that gift still on the table? Because that's a separate process. And I love the fact that you want to support your daughter, all of those wonderful things, and that she has a level of expertise. But back to how we're supporting the organization today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I really feel like this could be, again, a conversation leaning into your leadership, depending who holds the relationship with this donor, and being transparent about what your policies are for your organization is what will help you in this instance for sure.
Well said. And that's from Ashley. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley. So now we want to hear about your ethical dilemmas. Obviously, this is no names need to be shared. We just want to know how we can help today. If there's anything that has popped up that you're unsure of or want to talk through, we're more than happy to be that sounding board for you.
And please know that you'll have anonymity. I'm only sharing first names. And as far as the recording is concerned, please be advised that all the chat information, your first and last name will not be included in the recording, nor is that information shared. So that's another piece of our ethical standards with the Fundraising Academy as it relates to respecting your privacy.
Thank you, LaShonda. That's great. Do we have any examples yet?
So far, no examples. However,
Oh,
that means that this is some great opportunity. Also, should anybody want to just let us know what they're thinking so far. So the ball is in your court, and we want to hear from each and every one of you, whether it be ethical example or dilemma question. We want to hear from you.
LaShonda, I go back to the comment an experience you have with your vendors and how you have a very strict policy on what you're able to accept and also just in general, your relationship
Yes.
with them. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so specifically as it relates to vendors, there's two sides to it, and everyone knows that vendors, as you mentioned earlier, are also prospective donors, but those are two separate relationships, and we have to be very mindful of that. And so when I spoke earlier about the gift acceptance policy as it relates to me being an employee, that I was referencing was specifically for a vendor to make a gift of any kind to me as an individual who also works for the establishment in which they may be seeking a contract or may currently have a contract in which they benefit from. And because of our roles in the development space, depending on the vendor type, you may be able to have some influence on vendors that are selected. And this particular instance that I'm referencing is vendors who work directly with the fundraising office or development office and can have, and within your role you can have some influence because your suggestions and recommendations are often sought out. So it's important that we maintain that high standard holistically as an individual, as an employee. But the other side of that is also thinking about how those relationships can transition from becoming a vendor who has helped support your cause, um, from a supporting advancement services quasi kind of role into becoming a donor. And that is where it transitions into having a relationship manager that will foster that relationship and transition them accordingly through the donor cycle. And so it's really important that we understand how to distinguish the two and
Right.
moreover what those opportunities are. And so the opportunities for your prospective vendors are co-branding opportunities and
Mhm.
sponsorship opportunities, underwriting specific programs. And when I say co-sponsorship or co-branding, you may have an upcoming campaign and you'd like to issue out some swag. They may want to be the underwriter and co-brand t-shirts, blankets, all of those wonderful things that we give away to
Mhm.
demonstrate their support. And there's no conflict of interest because it's an actual contract and it is laid out that there are services being provided in exchange for those said funds. And
Okay.
then there may be instances in which your vendors will say, hey, I would love to just make an outright gift to your organization. And obviously, you have to have that candid conversation and let them know, what is it that you want to support? But moreover, being very cautious in ensuring that you let the particular vendor know that their gift has no reflection on future services. So be mindful of these types of things as it becomes time to renew services and contract expiration dates. So we just have to be very mindful in all aspects. And with that in mind, I'd like to share with you a dilemma that Lorena has shared with us. And it says that her organization supports people impacted by cancer. We see that a major area of success in peer-to-peer fundraising is due to tributes and memorials. we're struggling with how to maximize this without being insensitive. Really great question.
Yeah. So, Lorena, what is the process right now to acknowledge tributes and memorials? Like, is it something that you write a letter to the contributor, to the donor, and a letter to the family, letting them know? Do you do it publicly? How does it happen?
Yeah, and that's a really good one. And then, do you have an RM assigned? Because I think it's something that, because of its sensitivity, that this is something that an individual should make very personal, as opposed to the blanket letters that we often will receive.
Right, and then
And Lorena says
also
just personal. Yeah, she
just
said she
personal.
responded with
Okay,
just personal.
okay, and that is shared with the family beforehand. So I'm putting it into context because we had a similar situation at American Lung Association where I had previously worked with. And in that context, when there was a tribute, and most of the time it was done online. So if they checked the box that said, I want to make my donation as a tribute in memoriam, and then we would share specifically how we would acknowledge that support in as soon as they checked that box, and also gave them the option if they wanted to make their gift anonymous, if they wanted us to share it with the family. So that gave them more control of how they wanted to share their support for that particular person. Does that help?
And while we're waiting for Lorena to respond back with whether or not that helps, we also have from Cassie, thank you so much for sharing. Our organization has struggled with having board members become our vendors.
Uh-huh.
I'm always at a loss on how to approach ethical ramifications from these gifts that could eventually include questionable expectations. And Lorena has said yes. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm happy to share that. I have a special place in my heart for American Lung Association and all the things that they do. So kudos to them. Uh, and that one's a really tough one. And that was shared by Stephanie,
Cassie.
Cassie. Sorry. Um, so my question to you is again going back to the policies in place. Do you have a gift acceptance policy? Has it been shared with your board? Has it been approved by your board? And do you also share the standards of ethics within your organization? And do you have access to them? Who's making the decision? Does it happen through your CEO? Is vendors selected by the respective programs? It really, there's just so many things there. But I would say that part of this could be education and having a access to your board and training them, because ultimately they're there to help your organization with its mission, because there's a tie there for them. And being able to have your gift acceptance policy very, very clearly written, and what you're able to do and not to do. And again, this comes down to a conversation with your leadership and your leadership with your board. What you're willing to accept and what you're not willing to accept, and what it looks like for the organization publicly. What is your public image? And the answer that I give to you is, if you don't have a gift acceptance policy, to start looking for samples from like organizations. And if there's things that are missing that you feel is pertinent to your organization, then I would make sure that that is part of the policy. Go ahead and draft it in. And then also seek within your network so that you have another set of eyes there, other development professionals that can help assist you with it. And then, make sure that you present it to your CEO, your leadership, um, because it is a conflict of interest as stated in the AFP Code of Ethics. And you want to ensure that your public image for your organization is what it should be in order for you to carry out your mission.
Cassie adds that our board are also volunteers for our cultural events, so their services are sorely
Oh,
needed, my apologies. We're currently updating our bylaws and policies. This conversation is so useful for for leasing next board meeting,
okay, good. I'm so happy about that. Um,
leading the next board meeting. Thank you.
Leading. Okay. I'm so happy about that. And I feel that um, sometimes when you read, a book on best practices for fundraising or even be a part of webinars, uh, I think that having like a step by step on how to do it is very helpful because you know that as soon as you get off this webinar, I'm going to start looking for examples of gift acceptance policies from other like organizations. What is available right now? Who can I go to that may have a policy that could be useful at my organization? What is my network? Um, and actually, Fundraising Academy is a great resource. So thank you for being here today for this. And then building out that step for yourself. It doesn't have to be an overwhelming process, and we're sharing that right now with you. So I'm glad that you're here today, spending this time, and yeah, that's just my recommendation.
Yeah, you're spot on in all of it. And I would definitely just reiterate the importance of including this kind of information with your onboarding with your board,
Uh-huh.
going over some of the specs of your organization, what's the RFP process looks like, request for proposals, and having really transparent conversations about the potential for conflict of interest. And also, leading that conversation on ethics and accountability for your board members. Having open conversations in a safe place that fosters authentic engagement will help with easing and guiding the dialogue. And you don't necessarily have to be the one to say. In many instances, when you have an open forum discussion with the board members, they will come to that conclusion, which means they have the buy-in. And so with that, that alleviates the stress that you may potentially be feeling.
Yeah, and ensuring that you're on the same page with your CEO and
Definitely.
leadership is very important as well, because the decision maker for selecting your vendors. I love that you mentioned the RFP process because there should be a policy there too. Thank you.
And that was our last scenario so far for any discussion. Thank you both,
Perfect.
Cassidy and Lorena. We really appreciate you chiming in.
All right, PowerPoint. Don't fail me now. So I know that we're to the last few slides, but as far as summary is concerned, we hope that you gathered that trust is the foundation to build relationships, lasting relationships with your supporters and also the community at large, because they are also your stakeholders. Um, Transparency and trust inspires confidence and support. Also,
It's
again, oh, go ahead, Lashonda.
no, and I was just gonna ditto and echo some of your sentiments. Trust is always the most important thing. And the more that we can build authentic relationships based on trust, then that increases the propensity and the opportunity for our organization to not only have a great reputation within the external community, but in addition to that, that creates a space that will have individuals become magnets to your organization and want to be a part of the organization. Those that are current supporters will also become your advocates. And because they have a heightened sense of trust with you and your organization, that just creates subsequent opportunities to secure additional support and further your cause. So trust is definitely critical as we're going out into our various respective areas and securing gifts.
Absolutely. And transparency promotes accountability. And here's where communication's really, really important. And you could utilize so many different tools. What are you sharing in your e-newsletters? What does your impact report look like? What is the language that you're using? What about the emails? Or some of us, communicate with our donors via text. What does that look like, and how often? And are you doing it in a timely fashion? Um, Next is policies and procedures ensure that we adhere to ethical standards. They're meant to be tools and guides, so that if you're ever in a situation where it just there is a question, it doesn't feel like it is the right move, um, look into your policies and procedures, and if it's not listed, make sure that you bring it to your leadership and your CEO, and you have the conversation. As philanthropy professionals, we are change makers and very critical to our organizations. And we are also looked upon to be able to raise the flag when the flag needs to be raised. And I want to ensure that you feel empowered to do that. So, again, making sure that those policies are in place, and that you have it at your fingertips, that it is shared, and also that is a part of the culture at your organization. That's another thing that I want to share too, is that I uh, am at a very large organization, and donations come in different sizes and forms and through different departments, ensuring that they know who to go to when they have these opportunities, and that they know that that policy lives in the handbook, and that they can access it at any time, and that their philanthropy department is available to them, to be a resource and a partner.
I
So
can,
again,
yeah, you were spot on. And as you were talking, you invoked so much thought as, all of the things that you've shared. We've covered a lot of critical information as this month is Ethics Month, as in AFP sites. And you're going to see lots of information throughout the month, which has heightened our sense of urgency and also our commitment to excellence as it relates to being ethical industry professionals. One of the things that we did not happen to mention that I would love for you to share a little bit more about, Adriana, because you and I have talked about this countless times before, because we've encountered some ethical situations, and there are some instances in which you may have to decline a gift. And that's where that donor acceptance policy is really important. If you could just share a little bit with our attendees today about donor acceptance policies as well, which is the opposite side of the gift acceptance policy, that I think will help equip them with some additional tools as they go out and make their organizations even greater.
absolutely. So I do, you know, story sharing, storytelling. That is
Yes,
where
love it. There's nothing like real life examples. That makes it that
exactly.
much easier. It's practical, it's applicable, and it's palatable.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to share. And again, it's not black and white. We're dealing with people, with emotions, and philanthropy is really unique. We aren't necessarily selling a service or a product. We're selling a feeling and a way to make things better within our communities, whatever the mission may be. So as far as donor acceptance policy, I did have an instance, and you know, our mission is very clear. That's one of the things that I love uh, about just the way nonprofits are structured. we adhere to our mission, and that is, what we're going to do for our constituents, whoever they may be. But when you have a donor that comes to you and states that um, they will give you, I'll give you an example. I will give you $50,000, but I notice that you provide, you know, immunizations to purple and yellow people. I only want you to give immunizations to purple people because I am purple and I don't necessarily believe in the same beliefs as yellow people. So this is where I want my gift to go. And if your mission is to provide services to all people, purple, yellow, red, orange, pink, in accepting that gift, are you really adhering to your mission? And this is something that you really need to think about, because that gift could be $50,000. It could be more than that, could be really impactful for your organization. So the question is, do you accept it because your organization could really use it? Or do you decline it because it isn't what your mission is about, which is for all? So I can tell you that in instances in my career, there has been situations where a donor was being very exclusive to a particular group of people and exclusive of others. And the organization as a whole decided that that was not in the best interest of the organization, that we want to ensure that our community understands that we stand behind them, all of them, not just a particular subset. And that was a decision that the organization decided to make, obviously with the guidance of our policy and our mission, which is why we exist. And on a personal side, it felt very empowering, right? Because for the most part, we're all very mission-driven people in these positions, and it is empowering to have the ability to say no, thank you, because it isn't part of what we stand for. And in some instances, you could even guide that donor to another organization that may be able to utilize that gift as they intend it to be used.
And, that was absolutely perfect. There are instances where there is not alignment, and it's okay that there's not alignment with your mission. And it's okay to say thank you for considering our organization. And here's one that perhaps may align more with where your interests lie. And you're right, it is empowering to the community that you serve to know that there are policies in place and your organization holistically is maintaining high ethical standards, because there may be other instances where individuals may, their resources and the method in which they receive their resources may be questionable and unethical. And do you want that tied to your organization, which could lead to the reputation being tarnished, diminished in branding? So all of these things are very important as we're in that philanthropic space, and everyone is trusting us, not just the donors, but those that we provide services for. And so it's important that we also have that donor acceptance policy in place, because it ensures those that we provide services for, that we respect them, and that we want to ensure that the gifts that are being received are for that particular cause, and that there's not any question about sources or any kind of issues of that nature. And so it's just really important, because I can think of a couple of instances in the news where large gifts have been made and had to be returned because of ethical things that were happening with the individuals. So just be very mindful of that. And I would like to add that Cassie has posted in the chat that she's worked at a faith-based based organization that had to decline a huge gift because their requirements to include their logo on all of the marketing collateral and correspondence for an entire year. It was the most difficult follow-up conversation I ever had to have. However, because of our open dialogue, we did secure a smaller gift, more frequent gifts from this donor. And Cassie, that's an excellent example of transitioning that into something that is achievable, that meets everyone in the middle and helps align with your goal.
Yeah, and preserving the relationship. That's wonderful.
Exactly. That
I
is
think
an excellent example.
to your point too, Lashonda, of these recent, uh, large gifts in the media, I do want to let you know that as far as the code of ethics is concerned, it is being updated very regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, and it is something that should be because it is. Um, you need to adhere to the times as well. What was acceptable in 1950s, very different from 1960s, and so on it goes. So it's constantly evolving to make it uh, better and easier to navigate these situations that, again, are not black and white. There's a lot of gray out there. But utilizing, again, these tools as well as your leadership, your network, I cannot stress that enough, to help you is important.
Very. Are
So
there
that's,
any other?
oh, there
I'm
you go.
with you. Are there
Question.
any other questions? Do we have any other questions? We're taking questions from our participants. This is your time. We yield back to you. This has been a really great conversation on ethics this month, Adriana. Like, all of the information that we've covered has been absolutely phenomenal. And most importantly, it's been a nice reminder for me to keep top of mind as we're moving forward throughout the year. Certain that there are going to be some instances where each of us will encounter some questionable asks over the end of year timeframe. So I'm glad that we're able to prep, and we're hopeful that each and every one of you have deemed the value in this conversation. So we did have a question too regarding templates. And so the question was if we had templates online with Fundraising Academy. And Cassie, there aren't any specific per se templates on the FA portal. However, we have dropped a link of some samples with AFP Global, which has a variety of policy procedure samples that are easily accessible, and it's accessible to the open public in terms of the forum. But we do also have some subsequent ethical presentations that are available on the platform as well. And we've got some subsequent training sessions too that you may also be interested in that support ethical decision making. We've also just posted the AFP Code of Ethical Standards also as a point of reference. And I will yield to Adriana as she kind of talks through some of that
Yeah,
and how to
absolutely.
apply.
Absolutely. So, as mentioned, uh, it is Ethical Awareness Month. And I was sharing with Lashonda earlier that I just received my magazine from AFP Global. And the very front of the magazine, well, I can't really share it. It's what does ethical fundraising mean to you? So just know that all of the information that is shared and through Fundraising Academy, through Association of Fundraising Professionals, and the standards of ethics, it's something that is worked on very regularly and being updated. And so take a look at what is available to you as a resource now. It's very accessible. But to Cassie's point too, I want to go back to it. I would also recommend looking at organizations that are similar to you to see if they have their policies on their website. And that is a great guide and will really be able to get you started.
Yeah, and the hardest part sometimes is just getting started. And so
Yes.
by having these resources available to you as a guide is really important to help get the structure in place of the things that you'd like to have, and that that perhaps your organization needs to move forward with propelling or implementing in the immediate future.
Absolutely. And, even as we are sharing, LaShonda and I, for us, it's also an ongoing process. Is our policy up to date? Has there been an instance where it didn't really apply to the gift? How can we update it to ensure that our organizations are prepared and equipped to tackle instances moving forward? There are so many different things that are happening right now in different forms of giving. Uh, Bitcoin, I mean, just land alone, there's so many nuances. So ensuring that you're keeping up to date, because it's not a one and done, right? As far as your policies are concerned. So keeping up to date, making sure that you have access to the most current information, and knowing where to go is really important, just as a fundraising professional alone.
Definitely. It's our responsibility to stay informed on current trends, and that also helps increase donor trust. And it also promotes the commitment that we have to maintaining the highest level of excellence on behalf of our organization, as well as our commitment to the industry as a professional. So we're really excited to have shared some of this great information with you. Are there any other questions or comments? And if not, at this point, we want to invite you to connect with us. We have our QR code for the Fundraising Academy, where we provide a wealth of information that is free to you. We have many resources that are available that include not only the online portal for other webinars, but also information that can support your organization as you're moving forward to fulfill your philanthropic goals for the year and prepare to close out strong. And Adriana and I would love to be connected with you. We both are on LinkedIn, and we look forward to seeing you all again. And I will yield my final words to our phenomenal presenter, Miss Adriana O'Donnell, CFRE Fundraising Academy Trainer Extraordinaire. Please join us on the portal. And Adriana, I turn it over to you.
And honestly, I'm going to close with gratitude. Thank you all for utilizing your time this morning with us to learn more and share. And I want to thank you for what you contribute to your respective organizations and making our world better. So with that, I say take care of yourselves and hope to see you again at the Fundraising Academy.
For sure. Please don't forget to create a login on our free portal. The link is in the chat. Log on today to be able to access subsequent information. We look forward to seeing you again in our subsequent trainings, and have a wonderful rest of your day, and continue to maintain the highest level of ethical standards on behalf of yourself in impacting your organizations. Thank you.
Thank you.